breaker one night. You're riding the blacktop with Charlie Claiborne, and this is highway fever.
We're talking trucks, truth and the tough road that keeps America rolling, from long nights and big lows to politics, pay and pride behind the wheel. If it happens on the highway, it happens here.
Good Sunday morning, y'all. I'm Charlie Claiborne, the host of Highway Fever, and today we're going to address Administrator Derek D. Bars. This is the one that will force him to face what he already knows. Administrator Barr, let's start with the basics, sir. You're not a newcomer to highway safety. You are not someone guessing from a spreadsheet. You're not someone who's never had to look at the reality of America's roadways. You are the former chief of the Florida Highway Patrol. That's right, Derek Bars is former chief of the Highway Patrol. A man who spent years dealing with real crashes, real drivers, real tragedies, and real data. So you, more than anybody, sitting in Washington, already know the truth, Mr. Bars. Truckers move over when they see law enforcement vehicles on the shoulder with flashing lights, tow trucks with flashing lights, emergency vehicles with flashing lights. Most four-wheelers don't. Truckers slow down. Four-wheelers dive into gaps that don't exist. Truckers leave space for safety. Four-wheelers slam into that space like it's open pavement. Truckers respect physics. Four-wheelers pretend physics is optional. Sir, you spent a career watching these patterns on Florida's interstates and highways. You've seen what happens when an 80,000-pound rig gets cut off by someone in a Kia doing 30 over the speed limit with a phone in their hand. So why, with your background, Mr. Bars, has the FMCSA, under your leadership, continued regulating the 4% that aren't causing the majority of the damage, instead of focusing on the 96% that are? You know better. You know who causes the majority of the car-truck crashes, man. You know the data shows passenger vehicles are at fault in most of those collisions. You know professional drivers aren't the ones weaving through traffic like it's a video game. You know truckers don't brake check sedans. You know truckers don't cut off families with kids in the back seat. You know truckers aren't the ones driving impaired at 1 a.m. on the interstate. You know because you used to respond to those scenes. You worked those wrecks with troopers under your command. You've seen firsthand what actually causes them. So now let me ask you this, straight up. Why is the FMCSA regulating truckers as if they are the root of all the problems, when you know, Mr. Bars, from experience, that they aren't? Why pile on more rules for the safest, most disciplined drivers on the road? Why treat truckers like the threat when your own law enforcement past, your knowledge, proves otherwise? Why continue the Washington tradition of blame the trucker when your own eyes and your own troopers showed the opposite for years? This isn't ignorance. This is avoidance. It is easier to regulate the people who comply than confront the people who cause the danger. And guys, that's a fact. They know they can get away with doing it to us. It is easier to tighten down on CDO holders than challenge the behavior of 200 plus million untrained motorists. Comes back to the whole, we're the professional. It's easier to squeeze the 4% than educate the 96%. But easy is not leadership, sir. Leadership is honesty. Leadership is responsibility. Leadership is acknowledging what you know from decades of real highway experience. The trucker is not the problem. The professional trucker is not the problem. The professional trucker is the one preventing problems created by others, including the federal government, the DOT, the FMCSA, and Congress. And yet the FMCSA continues to hammer the very group that does the most to make the highway safer. We spend more time as individuals educating the public than the federal government. Administrator Bars, you know better because you've seen better. So open your ears, not to the Washington lobbyists, not to safety groups looking for grant money, not to bureaucrats who've never set foot on a crash scene, but to the men and women behind the wheel. They keep the country moving, sir. They keep the highways safer than anyone else. And they deserve policy based on fact, not convenience. We're done carrying the blame for the behavior of everyone else on the road. We're done being Washington's easiest target. We're done letting the truth be ignored. Administrator Bars, you know the truth. Now we expect you to act like it. I'm Charlie Claiborne. That's my Sunday thought for the day. Mr. Bars, we thank you for your service. And although we know you were the ATA's part of the ATA's legal counsel,